There is this old question that for those who are not in sannyasa, how can we live in a detached manner? Now, this question is asked because people have misapprehension, and I would even say miscomprehension of what detachment means. Very often it is regarded as not being involved in any way. That a detached person floats in some cloud of spiritual attainment and is therefore beyond all human feelings of love or grief. Or that's not what detachment means, and there are multiple ways of looking at this. There is the whole nishkama karma kind of attitude. There is the whole be the witness. There is the whole thing of don't have the sense of doership. Don't feel that I am doing. Just feel that things are happening through you. But fundamentally, the issue that people have with detachment, because it's actually very simple. The issue that people have with detachment is that they feel that we will become less human, that our emotions will become less intense. But if you are attached to a situation, what is wrong with that? If you are attached to the work you are doing, what is wrong with that? If you are attached to the people you are around you, what is wrong with that? So when they use the word detachment, there is a miscomprehension or some kind of misunderstanding about what is needed to be done. Nobody is telling you to become cold and unfeeling and calloused. Most of the time the callus is a wound, or it is a bruise, and then the tissue hardens over there and then you can't feel anything. And somehow it has become that the detached person is like a callus from head to foot and nothing affects them. No, not at all. What a detached person means, or what a person with a yogic perspective is, actually the person is more attached. Actually the person has more intensity of feeling, more intensity of emotion, more intensity of action, commitment, everything, but they do not let that define them. What happens to you does not become what defines you. It is just something that happens to you. It means that agency is now internal. It is not an external thing, that something from outside. It is no longer a pure matter of stimulus and response. It becomes an independent response on your part. Because something has happened in a certain way, that does not mean that we have to respond as the stimulus requires. It means we can respond as we feel is optimal. Just because you are intensely committed to something, or just because you are intensely participating in something, does not automatically mean that you are also controlled by it, which is the truth in most cases. Yes, it is true. There is the law of escalating commitment. It is well known in economics. Here we have an economics graduate from all. And it is found that if you throw resources and effort into a project and the project is not turning out the way you found, very often people double down on their mistake and they throw more resources and more effort into the project, because now we are defending our investment. Now we are and we all know that stock market crashes usually happen. Stock market crashes usually happen like that. The problem is we do that in our relationships also. We defend our investment. After this much time now, how can I? After having spent so much time working on this, now how can I walk away? So this fear of not being able to hold on to one's investment, hold on to the perceived rewards of one's efforts, that is what people are actually complaining about. But it's very interesting. This gamblers know it. Gamblers are very compulsive. So the deeper the hole they get into, the more excitement it provides. Because now when the reward comes and you climb out of the hole, oh man, it's extraordinary. What we are talking about when we say detachment is the exact opposite of the gambling mindset, or it is the exact opposite of the escalating commitment. At every moment, if you are detached, it means you are free. You do not have to go by the history of what has happened. You do not have to go by the whole intertwined lines of karma of what has happened. At every moment, you are a free agent and you can make your decision on the truth of that moment. Should I continue with this or should I not? When you are with the people or the circumstance or the work, you are 100% there. When you are no longer there, you are not thinking about it. Your energy is not there, your mind is not there, your emotion is not there. Now, those are the people who are thought of as cold. They are not cold, they are just sensible. The problem is, where do we have the time to express the love and warmth and affection that we have in ourselves? Because anyways, the office takes up, or the work takes up the majority of the time, and then commuting to work and back from work is another big issue in a city like ours. And then when we come back home, it's not like it's turned off, because we all have this little pocket computer nowadays called the phone, and the work keeps following us and it keeps pinging us. Where is the time for relationships? Where is the time for just basic human expression? Because yes, we all need affection, but we don't realize that even to express affection is a human need. And a person who has no opportunity to express the warmth within themselves or the love within themselves is also suffering. It is not just that you have not got. People don't realize these things. So, yogis are not people who have all dried up inside, though that happens sometimes. They become so clear about the karmic interactions that they just say no participation. No participation is not the same as detachment. No participation, no involvement is not the same as detachment. Detachment only means my responses are under my volition. My responses are under my understanding, my wisdom, my take on what is best at the moment, and I will do that. So, even though I have been putting in all my effort here, if I see that it is no longer working, you move on and you do what works. Because yoga is immensely practical. I keep saying that, it is the most cold-blooded thing I have ever seen in my life. It's all about what works. It's not even that you don't feel, people think that to be detached means that we should be unemotional. We should become very hard and logical and cold, and no, not at all. You are feeling sorrow, you feel sorrow. You are feeling anger, you feel anger. Don't stay there. The problem is we have a certain emotional uprising or emotional shake up, we express certain things, we do certain things, and then that kind of defines us. We become stuck in that what we have done, what we have said, what we have thought, and we start moderating our positions, or we start acting in future on the basis of that thing. You have felt unhappy at that moment, feel unhappy. Only a psychopath will not feel unhappy. Somebody you cared about died. What kind of inhuman monster are you if you won't feel sorry about it? Okay, I'm not talking about the people who deserve to die. There are many of them. And I have shocked people by actually saying that person died. Oh, that's really good news, because that person was a holy terror to the family, or rather an unholy terror to the family. And everybody was breathing sigh of relief now, because we don't have this pain on our head. That's the other side of it. Sometimes you can become quite blunt about things that are socially not acceptable, but I stopped caring a long time back. The point is, if you feel that emotion, you feel that emotion and be done with it. Not struggle against it. I am feeling attachment here, I am feeling upsurge of love here, I am feeling upsurge of anger here. These are not things I should be doing, because I am doing yoga now. I should be detached from everything. That way, all you are trying to do is you are trying to fight your own vasanas. And I have explained that before, that don't try to fight your vasanas, create new samskaras. You're destined to fail, you're guaranteed to fail. Gurus have problem. Now, I don't say anything about love. I don't speak about loving the disciples or the students, because it is a word that is so prone to misunderstanding. Because it is instantly taken in two categories. It is taken as romantic and sexual, as if there is no other aspect of love, or there is no other. And trust me, the truth of the matter is that the love that comes from the kshetram which flows through the teacher, that kind of love is beyond anything that you will ever experience. But if people insist on interpreting that through what they have experienced or what they desire, then there will be a problem. So one has to be careful, one has to be careful, because sometimes you get these emotionally volatile people and they are pouring out their love for you, and you are backing away rapidly because you know what they mean by that word. And it's the kind of interaction that is going to be quite dangerous. And the expectations that come from it. This is another problem that people have, that because you give full attention to that person when they are in front of you, they make the mistake of thinking that somehow makes them special. And then they see that you are the same way with somebody else, and you are the same way with your cat or your dog also, and they feel deeply affronted. Because they wanted to believe that they were that one unique tree in the whole world which you were worshipping. You had made a shrine out of them, and then they see that's just the way you are. You're just intense. When you are intense, the way you respond to the cat, to the dog, to the animal, to the driver, to the situation is the same. And none of that defines you. None of that restricts you. None of that. So people have this huge problem that if I start yoga, I start a spiritual process, I will become withdrawn. I will no longer be able to enjoy. The yogi enjoys the most actually, because he or she throws herself into that experience fully. As soon as the experience is over, all right, it's done, let's move. They don't come to it with expectations that this experience will persist. They don't come to it with expectations that this experience will be infinitely replicable till eternity. It is what it is at that moment, move on. Is it that simple? This is what, whenever I explain this perspective, people are keep asking me, is it that simple? And I'm like, actually, it is that simple. I'm not saying it's easy. That is why you need to do the sadhana. That is why you need to do the kriya. That is why you need to do the meditation. Because if you do the kriya, the sadhana, the meditation, your basic bioenergy rises until you're just vibrating intensely all the time. And the more intense you are, the more prachand you are, the easier it is for you to be detached. Who is the greatest example of detachment in our culture? Krishna. He was a man who was just constantly engaged with everything. And at the same time, he could walk just like that. It's an extraordinary thing. I mean, did anybody ever have as much fun in life as Krishna? I just keep wondering, I mean, the man was just in bliss. He was just in joy, and at the same time, he was completely free. Now, Krishna also learnt yoga. Krishna also learnt this is just something that needs little bit of practice. This is just a new samaskara that you need. It is just a new habit that you need. And then it becomes quite fun. People keep wondering because, books and movies and everything, I don't stop. I love movies. I'm film buff. I keep watching, and books and art and everything. I participate. When I'm with that, I'm with that. When I'm not with that, I'm not with that. I don't let it take up and occupy space in my head. Also, when I am with people, but then I realize that problem that you can become addicted to another person. Most people are so starved of attention, and when they first run across a yogi, and the way the yogi pays attention, because somebody is speaking to you and you are listening to them, your mind is not somewhere else, you're not scattered in 20 ways, and somewhere deep within they feel that for the first time in my life somebody is fully giving attention to me, somebody is actually listening to me, and that actually demoralizes them. It's such a strange experience. They've never had it, and they actually think that this is something, some kind of validation, that finally one person has recognized my unique status in the universe. No, it's just something that yogis normally do. Whatever you are doing, you do with your full commitment, you do with your full intensity. The minute it is over, it is over. So there is no question of not being involved, there is no question of not being engaged, but there is no question only of being caught, of being stuck, of being trapped. Now, the reason why they keep warning is because human desire is human desire. We can keep multiplying them endlessly. The minute you have a car, you want the most swanky car. And you may have the most swanky car in Mumbai, but that's not good enough. Now it has to be the most swanky car in India and then the world. And then you're complaining because I don't have a private jet, or I have not yet gone into outer space. Today that has become the new mark of being cool and hyper rich, that you can take a ride on the space shuttle. What you do floating out there is another matter. Okay. The point is, if you get there, but if you have something that is beautiful, why not enjoy it? Because you're a yogi, whatever is beautiful should no longer have any impact on you. It should not have any shift in your consciousness. If you see a beautiful painting, you should not appreciate it. Painting actually is good, the painter and the sculptor are two people who are, in a way, they have that yogic thing, you see, because if you're a writer, people can read your books, but still you have written it. If you're a filmmaker, people can see the movie, but still you have created it. Whereas the painter and the sculptor has to give up their stuff. So they pour all their life energy, their skill, their talent, everything into it, and then somebody else cuts it away. So they learn very early on, this thing of not getting stuck, this thing of not getting attached. In most other creative professions, the sense of ego inflation is very great, and the sense of possessiveness and the sense of doership is very great, because after all, who can take away? If you're a dancer, you're the dancer. Who can take away that? But when you're a painter and a sculptor, or anybody working in something that can be transported, it's good training. It's very, very good training. Which is why they tend to be the writings of painters and sculptors tend to be very interesting. They tend to be very powerful, because unconsciously that thing of not getting attached, not getting stuck, not having your personality dependent on the outcome is there in the work. Whereas in almost everything else we do, our personality is dependent on the outcome. And if the outcome does not turn out exactly as we please, sculptors know anyone talk somewhere wrong and that's it. The whole thing is gone. Painters know, damn it, it's not working. So there is a lot of yogic training, automatic yogic training. And we had this notion of the 64 colors. We had that a completely civilized and cultured person has 64 arts. They know 64 arts, and part of it was painting and part of it was sculpture. And so it was, in a sense, a yogic training. But that's just an aside, it's just an interesting observation that there are two, and instantly in the consciousness, even though they are not really aware why, something happens in the consciousness. Reading the works of painters, reading what painters and sculptors have put down about creativity or art or just their basic thoughts, there's always a different vibrance there. And that vibrance is this, that whether they like it or not, the nature of the profession is they can't get too attached to what they are doing. Detachment is taught early on. Detachment is taught early on. When you think of somebody like Van Gogh, he made over 3,000 paintings in his lifetime, and I think one painting was sold in his entire life. Yeah, and today you have to pay $100 million for it because he died suddenly. The art became better or something. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make, and so many other examples, but he's the most extreme example. That what happened? Just because he died, suddenly the art has become better. But did he stop? That is my thing. Did he stop? And if you look at those paintings, man, you can see that the man is throwing his entire Shakti into that. Paintings that vibrate and hum and thrum like that, there are very few in the world. You can actually feel he's painting with his life energy. I don't think he was happy that none of his paintings sold. I think he would have been much happier. I can look at these paintings and enjoy them all to myself, because it is my work. I don't think so. The point I'm making is, do not think that if I will take a detached, what is Nishkama Karma actually? It means giving up the desire for outcome. Ma phaleshu kadachana, the phal, the fruit of the action, don't obsess about the fruit of the action. You are projecting a desired outcome. You are projecting a desired outcome. When that doesn't happen, frustration happens. After frustration happens, anger happens. Anger is almost always frustrated desire. But if you don't have a desired outcome already settled, and you just take what happens, because very often what actually transpires might be much greater than your desired outcome, or what you planned, or what you thought was going to happen, and it just exploded beyond anybody's comprehension. If you do that, you can, Bill Gates made the famous statement, I don't know why anybody would want a computer with more than 64 KB computing power. Can you believe that in today's context? So even he didn't know what is going on. Even he didn't have the ability to project that far and see what is going on. It's actually a very joyous way. It's not by accident that Krishna is the greatest example of this whole detachment, because it's actually a very joyous way to be. Let's do this. Let's do this with full commitment. Let's do this with all our energy and see what transpires. Let's just throw ourselves into it, and then when it is over, it is over. People find this very difficult because people are in the habit of judging themselves by outcomes. And the outcomes are not their own desires, or the outcomes are not their own goals. They are all injected artificially from outside. Your family expects it, your society expects it, those kind of, and then frustration happens. Whereas if you would just do what you want to do, even if it is not something you want to do, you have to do it. All right, might as well do it with a pleasant outlook. No, might as well do it in a happy frame of mind than in a complaining frame of mind. Just do it and be done with it. The more I go into yoga, the more I find that all those endpoints of yoga are exceedingly simple. Yoga is one of the simplest paths. It's not an easy path, but it's exceedingly simple. They don't ask for supernatural things. They ask for complete groundedness. They ask for complete stability and sense. So detachment is not something that is to be mightily labored for, and then finally we plant the flag on Everest and now we can. Most people have this idea that now I am doing a job, I have a career, I have a family, I have children, so now I can't be detached. When my responsibilities are over, I'll be detached. you know, you can't plan, like that. It doesn't happen, and then they realize that if all your life you have trained yourself to think garbage, to do garbage, in the end that's the only thing you can do. You become what you do. To a large extent, you become what you do. Not always, but most people, you become what you do. If you consistently do something, you have created the samskara, you have created the neurological pattern, your habit becomes so great that now in old age when you want to change it, or in middle age when you want to change it, you suddenly realize the groove is too deep. So the whole point of yoga is don't create grooves at all. Or if you're going to create grooves, be damn careful. If you're going to create samaskaras, be damn careful that they are samaskaras which will enhance your life. The samaskara of getting up and doing 1 hour of hatha yoga and following it up by 1 hour of kriya, yes, that will take you to 120. But not if you spent 1 hour the previous night imbibing alcohol and then smoking. then you're cancelling out all the good work you do in the morning. It's quite common that you have to do things that you don't like. Everybody is not going to find their enteleki or their swadharma straight away, or the one dream job, and most of us don't get our dream jobs. We get quite frustrating jobs, even nightmarish jobs, but you don't need to get that het up about it. Do what needs to be done, and when it is done, you leave it. No, but now we want our jobs and our family to uh, satisfy us at all levels, self-actualize us. And that is not the purpose of your job or your family. It is your own responsibility. But anyways, that is a talk for some other time. So this sense of not being outcome dependent, that is all it means to be detached. The sense of the situation is over, that's it. I do not need to be invested in it anymore. I do not need to be stuck in that anymore. I can get on. It's like the movie is over. Why are you still sitting? Get up and go home. So of course the next question is that true of relationships also? I'm like, I hope you wouldn't walk out of important relationships, but if needed, yeah. you know, I hope you wouldn't walk out of your responsibilities, but if needed, yeah. Buddha walked out of his kingdom, his inheritance, his family, his newborn child, and who are we to say that was not the right thing to do? Sometimes your swadharma, your enteleki is more imperative than anything else. Again, these questions are all anticipations of outcome. So they are not honest questions. If you are really engaged with that situation, if you are really engaged with that relationship, why should it come to a bad end or a sticky end? Why are you already anticipating disaster, that one day I may have to leave and that will break my heart? Hearts are meant to be broken. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. These are all the perfection fallacy, that we will create the perfect interaction, we will create the perfect relationship, we will create the perfect working environment, and nothing in life is like that. Ever. A detached person is actually, I think, a person who's having great deal of fun, much more than the average person who's outcome dependent, because a detached person can go home. And once he's at home, he's not where whatever was happening, or yeah, it's a very tragic fallacy, unfortunately, that detachment means emotionally cold and withdrawn and not caring and not participating, and it's very tragic fallacy. Nothing of the sort. Absolutely nothing of the sort. If it was all those things, those are all mentally unstable and ill behaviors. Yoga would never recommend it. The very fact that yoga says you be detached means there is certain benefit to it. There is certain ananda, because that is after all the end point. The end point of yoga is always ananda, bliss. If detachment will give you bliss, yes, of course, certainly it gives you. Okay? Sarvam Sure, man.